Welcome to Season 7 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm excited to share these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Did you know that there are over 10 million survivors of domestic abuse in the United States? And that 1 in 3 households of those survivors have a pet? Today's guest is no stranger to this fact. Orzie Cook is the founder of Praline's Backyard Foundation, and I'm so excited to share her amazing journey and our inspiring conversation about what she's doing to make a difference in the world for these survivors and their beloved pets. We are so excited to have Orzie Cook today of Praline's Backyard Foundation join us. Welcome. I'm so happy that you're here.
I'm glad to be here, Heidi. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help raise awareness.
We are really excited. So why don't we just dive right in, and why don't you tell us really quickly what Praline's Backyard Foundation does?
Okay. Praline's Backyard Foundation, we house pets of domestic violence survivor anywhere in the country via pet boarding facilities and pet fosters. Just because one of the barriers for a survivor leaving an abuser is lack of housing for their pet. So we want to eliminate that barrier so they have housing for their pet and they feel secure in that.
I think that that's beautiful. As I've talked to you a little bit before we had our conversation about domestic violence, and something that you don't think about, when someone's trying to leave, they're typically getting their children, the clothes on their back, and they're getting out the door. And so talk to me what that looks like for the people that you're serving. Like what is that a typical scenario? I know there's nothing typical about it or good, but what, the process of leaving and then realizing, oh my gosh, what do I do with my dog or my cat or my beloved pet who's part of my family?
Yeah. And so I tell people all the time that one thing that a survivor does when they call us, I could be working with a survivor, and I have worked with a survivor up to 3 to 4 months before they've made the decision to leave. What a survivor does is really trying to assess what resources are available to them when they do leave. And so one thing, the person is trying to assess is what services are available for their pet when they leave. We recognize, as you mentioned, that children are thought of, so that is something automatically thought of. But
Right.
there are also pets involved in a family, because we recognize 1 in 3 households has a pet. And so recognizing that means almost half of all survivors have a pet as well.
Wow.
And then when they enter into a situation where they need to leave an unhealthy living situation, it's like, do I leave my pet with this abuser who we recognize that a person who abuses a person often will abuse a pet as well. And if we go back into the history of that, they probably already abused a pet before they reached the point of abusing a person. And so this person battles with, am I going to leave my pet with this person who may harm the pet?
Right.
Or do I stay because I want to protect my pet? And I want my pet to be with me because it's a level of comfort to me as well.
Right.
And so just that conundrum that a survivor has to go through, we want to eliminate that and empower them to know that when they're ready to leave, we want to make sure they have their pet taken care of when they just make that decision.
Wow. Well, and I understand that it gives me comfort for whatever reason to know, and I've certainly interviewed a number of domestic survivor nonprofits, but I don't always think about the planning, the planning process. And it actually is comforting to me to know that there's planning, because sometimes it seems like I gotta go, like I'm out, but but the planning that goes into it, I don't think we always think about that. So I think that's interesting. So talk to me. You don't, wake up and decide to start a nonprofit. It's just really not the way it works. When you're little and you're growing up and they ask you what you want to be, it usually is not what you say.
No.
There's a number of things that happen in your life's journey along the way that get you to this point. So why don't you tell us the process that brought you here?
Well, I don't even know. How you answer that question makes me think about that question in another way. And how did I with my life? I have no idea. I know, because I couldn't have told you 5 years ago I would be leading a nonprofit. It wouldn't even been nice. I probably 10 years ago, you couldn't have told me I would be own my own company either. I wouldn't have got that either.
Right.
This all started with the idea that I wanted to, and I do own a company still, but I had planned to transition from walking dogs to having a physical facility. And I knew that when I did that, because I had worked at domestic violence shelter and I had volunteered at domestic violence shelter and volunteered at the Humane Society, I knew that I always wanted to house pets of domestic violence survivors because of my experience at the shelter and the Humane Society. When I was at the shelter, and this is a women's domestic violence shelter, a lot of survivors would go back to be with their abuser because they want to be with their pet, not to be with the abuser, but to be with their pet. And I was
Wow.
like, I didn't have, this was like over 20 years ago. The shelter that I volunteered at did not house pets or make any level of accommodations for pets. However, I was like, oh, I just felt so bad for the survivor, right? I was
Right.
a volunteer and I was fully grown, I had graduate degrees and all that, but I never thought about how do we solve this problem. And I was just like, oh, that's bad that they decided to leave, and just went on, continued volunteering. And later on, I volunteered up until COVID at the Humane Society. And the opposite side of that, I would see survivors come and relinquish ownership of their pet because they were going into a living situation that did not accept pets. And so
Ah,
that's a responsible thing to do. If you're a pet parent, you can't take care of your pet. Let me
right.
get someone who can.
Right.
That's a responsible thing to do. However, that's not what they wanted to do. They were just in unstable housing and they didn't know how long they would get settled. And they couldn't have their pet.
Right.
They made that a very difficult choice. And so again, it was like, there has to be a better way. I didn't know what that way was, but there has to be a better way. And then in the midst of COVID, as we all assessed our life choices,
Right.
then I saw the rise of domestic violence. And because of the experience I had had, I knew that this was happening again in terms of pets not being relinquished, or they being left with an abuser.
Right.
So and I was trying to build a facility at the same time. And so I was like, and then I just started sharing my story on social media. And then people started saying, oh, you should become a nonprofit. You should do this. I'm like, oh, no, I just want to do this as part of my business plan.
Right.
It's not gonna be a big deal. It's just like something like a little side project. Like,
Right.
my little side thing I want to do. Like nothing, just a side thing.
There is no nonprofit that is a little side project. That is not
Okay.
how it rolls.
And
Sorry we
so
didn't tell you that in advance, Orzi, but
yeah, but I just feel a little side thing, like nothing, just something I want to do for the
volunteering,
community.
little extra,
Yeah,
some
do a little
little way to
something.
get back. Little way to get back.
Yeah, and so I just started sharing the story that people said, "Oh, you should be a nonprofit," and I was like, "Oh no!" So that kept being the recurring thing. I should be a nonprofit and do all this, and so I ended up applying to become a nonprofit. We became a nonprofit, and then I started sharing the story. People started sending me money, and then I was like, "Oh, okay." But then I ended up not building a building. And I was like, well, how can I work in partnership? And so, because I always believe many hands make light work. And so, how
Yeah.
can I work in partnership with
Yes.
other organizations and other companies? And so, I started reaching out to pet boarding facilities across the US and different foster networks as well. And I was just telling them my story. And I said, can we work in partnership? And you'll help house pets and domestic violence survivors with the pet boarding facility at a reduced cost or no cost or whatever. We could just work together
Right.
to house the survivor's pet. And so I got plenty of helpful feedback saying, yes, if anybody in our area is going to have a pet, we'd love to house them. Some people would say we couldn't afford to do it for free, but we can do it at a discounted rate. And I understand some of these places are not like huge franchise, they're business,
Right.
right?
But
So
you didn't have to build a shelter. You were able to partner with existing shelters.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I ended up doing because my building did not come through. Then I was like, oh, well, how can I still wanted to do this project because it had gotten momentum and people were like
Right.
donating money. And I was like, oh, let me pivot a little. Let me just
Right.
still do what I was going to do, but work in partnership with other businesses that have established pet boarding facilities. And so it's just went from there. That's how it's going.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So when you're starting, I mean, as you said, you have a business already, and now you have a nonprofit, which is a business that relies
Yeah.
on the kindness of others with a really different business model.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges of starting this business? First of all, you're starting it during a pandemic, so
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah.
Um, and as you're saying, you didn't build a physical plant, which probably, in hindsight, was a blessing.
Yes, it
I'm
was.
going to take
I didn't
again.
feel it at the time, but it was.
Right, a bless. But what were some of the other challenges that you've had in launching this? I mean, it's hard work because you're building community, as you said, you're trying to find partnership, you're connecting people, you're letting people know what you want to do, you're trying to solve a problem, and you're trying to bring all the constituents of this problem together. So, what were some of the challenges that you faced in doing that?
Well, I think the biggest challenge I face, and I continue to face it, is raising awareness on this issue. Like people do not know, and there are other organizations besides Praline's Backyard that actually does similar things, but not the way I do it. And so it's like just really raising the awareness because if people honestly, I feel like people knew that lack of housing for pets keeps us as a domestic violence survivor with an abuser, they'll be like, "Oh, I'll provide housing." It would just be
Right.
people would just do it because people are
Right.
so. In my experience, people are so generous in average. Like most people are not horrific people. People would open
Correct.
their hearts, their minds, and their wallets to assist a person because we either like people or we like pets. So we have two people in the situation.
Sometimes we like both. I
Yeah,
happen to like both.
okay, some people like both. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
happen to like
But
people and pets, but I think my husband might like pets more than people. I understand there are people like that.
exactly.
Right.
So knowing that is
Sorry,
like
honey, if you're listening.
so if people knew that I think that people would because I always tell people it costs nothing to follow, like, and share to help because my goal is always to educate 10 million people. Hence why I'm on your podcast to really educate 10 million people. And I feel like that 10 million represent the 10 million people each year that experience domestic violence in the United States alone.
Isn't that
And so if we
amazing?
recognize that, like just that amount, and then about half of those have pets, right? And
Right.
so, and then we recognize that less than 20% of domestic violence shelters make accommodations for pets, meaning that a pet can be housed at the shelter or the shelter makes some kind of accommodation for the pet at a animal welfare organization or something of that nature. And so we need more
So
resources available for
right.
survivors with pets. So if people knew that, then they would make a different level of change.
Think that your pet would be a pivotal piece of your healing process. Having your
Definitely.
pet having that unconditional love of an animal that loves you completely, that doesn't hurt you, would be something that would be healing through your process, and having access to your pet would be a helpful rather than another form of loss as you've just left your home, your partner and your life behind usually.
Yeah, definitely. I get stories all the time. You look on any of my social media when I post different stories, people always share their story. People have had stories 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, saying they left their pet with their abuser and they have so much unresolved feelings about that. And they're just so devastated. They just either they know what happened or they don't know what happened. And just not knowing really has hindered them in a sense in terms of getting beyond that and recognizing that I always say our pets love us, and sometimes they know leaving us is the best thing for themselves, and like a self-sacrifice. Our pets, they're
Right.
just self-sacrifice, right? And so, but I hear stories all the time like that, that people did leave their pets. And I don't want any survivor today in 2023, going into 2024, to leave their pet with an abuser when we have provision for them through pet boarding facilities and pet fosters across the US.
Wow, that's fantastic. So talk to me like what fuels you when it is hard, when you are having a long day, when you are running a business, a nonprofit, you're juggling it all. I mean, it's we still have laundry, we still have the holidays, we still have 50 billion things on our list that we haven't gotten to. We still have to make dinner and stop at the store. I mean, life is can be overwhelming sometimes, and we're in a business that is here to serve people and pets, in your case both.
Uh,
And so it's not like, "Oh, I didn't make enough, pencils at the pencil factory today." It's that there's someone who, if I don't do this work right now, is going to be hurt, their pet could be hurt. There's a lot of things that we put that end up on our shoulders that we feel when we
mm.
go to bed at night as nonprofit founders. We have the backs of humanity on us, and it can be overwhelming sometimes. So what fuels you when it's hard to kinda keep going?
Fuels me, I'll say first therapy is very important just to
Yes.
debrief all of that experience.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I definitely need that because in the beginning, when I first started this, and I would hear stories and I would get so entrenched in people's lives, and I had to really almost disassociate because I would just get so emotionally wrapped up into this person's life. And then, especially when they didn't leave, it was like, I want you to leave. And it's just like, that
Right.
it just hurts. But I have to recognize people move at their own pace. And I want to support them in that movement because I don't want you to go back. I don't want you to regress. I want you to go
Right.
at your own pace and not because I'm like heartbroken that you're still there. And
Right.
so really, so in the beginning, that's when I recognized I really need therapy. I need somebody to debrief this
Well,
with.
I think sometimes too with when we're dealing with situations of pain, we're a sponge and it needs to flow through us
Yeah.
and it sticks. It stays in the
Yeah.
sponge sometimes. We're the
Yeah.
sponge and we're holding on to other people's pain. We're just trying to help them and say, "Come on through." flush on through, but sometimes it gets stuck and we're
Yeah.
holding on to a little bit of that and we're
Because
like, "We
you're
got."
thinking about it. You're just thinking
But
about it.
it's
It's like my
and we
mind's
gotta
like
right,
going
it's
and
not
going.
mine, but we gotta moving through, healing, helping, next, coming through. But it's hard, right? It's hard. The
It's
pain,
very hard. It's very hard.
we carry it for sure.
Yeah.
So
Actually,
therapy, forgive me for
yeah.
interrupting you, Orzi. So therapy, and then what else do you do when it's just hard to keep going? Is
Well,
that
I guess
this
recently I got into yoga. I haven't gone to yoga since before COVID. We went to hot yoga this past weekend, and I realized, like, for the first time in a long time, I didn't have my phone with me. Like, even when I'm like, and I wasn't listening to something. Like, even when I go for a walk, I have my ear pods in. Right,
right,
it's like I'm not really resting. But when I had
right.
yoga, it was like I had a moment. I fell asleep. I love that. It's like, oh, this is good. Like, might just like to sleep on the meditation part, and it was like an extended, it's like a 75-minute yoga hot yoga session. And I was like, oh, this is beautiful. So I'm gonna have to do yoga more. So yes.
That's great. Well, so
So
there we go. You have a New Year's resolution. So talk to
yes,
me about impact. It's a love-hate word that we all nonprofits have because we have to measure it to get grants. We have to get it for funding. It's
yeah.
great to know the difference that we're making. And but impact can be a lot of things. And it isn't also to be percentage of people helped or numbers or metrics, but give me an idea of what you think your impact's been in the last few years since you've begun this. And
Well,
it's
I
hard to
say the impact.
measure. It's hard to measure also healing someone because they have their pet or the ability. I mean, that's an immeasurable thing, right?
Mhm. Well, I say, well, that's a good question because I'm thinking of I want to do like an end of year post, which I'll work on, and you'll by the time this launches, they'll have it, it'll be out there, and so I'm really recapping the year's progress. So one thing about, like I mentioned, more people reach out to me than I actually able to help, right? Because
Right.
people just as coming just calling to assess their what was available to them, and so I
Right.
think for that metric, that impact, they know that they know that there is a solution to the barrier they have in regards to their pet. So that's raising awareness among survivors to know that we exist. So when you're ready to leave with your pet, this service exists for you, right?
Right.
And then there is a survivor who, I mean, we have numbers in terms of impact, a number of pets we have put into a pet waiting facility to provide emergency housing for a pet for 7 days until we find a long term foster. So that's a level of impact.
Right.
The number of fosters that have volunteered to house a survivor's pet.
Mhm.
I looked at the number yesterday. It doubt it changed. It's like 47 right now that are currently being fostered, and there are about 20 something that are currently being boarded across the U.S. Those are small numbers. I
Right.
know those are numbers that are really impactful to those about 70 families that have a pet and they've left an abusive situation, and they've gotten the empowerment to know that their pet is okay and they can seek safety and assurance for themselves at a shelter
Right.
or during this transition period without their pet. Um, so I think that knowing that, like I said, like the impact is one person. My impact is one person. Like if one person has made the decision to leave,
Right.
I've helped change the destiny of that person's life. I think about just in terms of like they have left an abuser. Their children have left that abuser, so their children are less likely to become abuser. Their children are more likely to do this, and then their children's children
Right. The
will
ripple effect.
yeah. So it's like go on. So it's like that impact can never be measured in a sense, but to know that I've impacted one person and that will continue on. So yeah,
Well, I love that, and I have to say, with I've been interviewing nonprofit founders for about 12 years, a long time, and every nonprofit founder I've ever interviewed, they didn't start out because they were going to help millions or thousands or hundreds. They just wanted to help one person. They thought if I could just change one person's life, then I've done a good job. And of
yeah,
course, we all start saying, oh, yeah, we'll just help one. And then it's two, and then it's 10, and then it's 20, and then it's 70.
yeah,
And then we're our own worst enemy and we're setting goals and impacts for the next
yeah,
year. We're doubling our numbers, we're doubling our reach. And next thing you know, our impact is enormous. But to your point of the ripple effect of the children, I mean, it's significant with the amount of people involved in the family that you're helping. And
yeah,
for the kids getting their pet back. I mean,
yeah.
that's a huge thing too, because I mean, especially as a child, your pet is
Everything. Yeah,
everything, right? Your
yeah,
pet is everything as a child.
yeah.
So talk to me about dreams for Praline's Backyard. What is your dream? You can't start an organization without having a dream. What's the big dream? What do you wish if you could wish anything? for your
Well, the dream
organization?
right now, going into as we're in 2024, is to have a mobile app. And that app, right now, I'm the conduit between the survivor, the pet boarding facility, and the foster through an assistance through Dubert.com. Dubert is an organization that has fosters throughout the country. However, I would love to have a mobile app where a survivor could go into this app and say, "My name is Susie," or whatever. I have a 50-pound, I don't know, pit bull or something. I have no idea, just a
Right,
dog. And someone that's in Susie's area, a pet boarding facility could say, "Oh, we're available to house Susie's pet." Susie can bring her pet to that place. At the same time, there's a foster in Susie's area that says, "I'm gonna be available in a few days. I would love to foster Susie's pet for up to 6 months," right? And so that's all linked through the app that's secure, and also provides resources for that survivor in terms of whatever, like they need shelter, they need whatever resources they need as they leave their
right,
abuser. And so if I had an app, it is really a succinct process that ends on your phone. And so make it easily more secure and more hands-on. I mean, it's pretty mobile.
right.
Mobile
Kind of book
on
your
a
make
computer.
your reservation so that you
Yes.
can right, make your
Yeah, make that
reservation,
connection. Because
get
sometimes I end up
everything
having to call the pet boarding facility, and I'll call more than one because whatever the reason, I need to have
trying to
multiple
find it
options.
right, right,
And so, but if alert went out to people that already signed up into the network, the app is like, "Oh, okay." Then they would get alerted. Like somebody in my area needs a place to house their pet. It makes it even
right.
more community oriented. It's like, I want to help somebody in my community. It's like, this
Right.
is the person right here.
I literally just got that. I was walking up here to like looking at my phone. I got an alert from my next door app about a 4-year-old husky with a family that's moving away. And they said they can't take their dog to their new home. And I said to my husband, "Oh, what should we do? Do you think Lucy wants a friend?" He's like, "Are you kidding me?" We've had a husky before. He's like,
I,
"Are you crazy?" I'm like, "Look, it's someone in our neighborhood." And, but to your point, I think we really I think A, we need to get back to helping our neighbors in our community, and
yeah,
B, I think we feel better when we help our own community.
yeah,
Not that we don't wanna help someone who lives far away, but it
yeah,
just
yeah,
makes us feel more connected to where we live, and I think it strengthens us as a community, as a city, as a country when we're taking care of our neighbors. So I think
yeah.
that the idea of having that app makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it really builds community because people recognize this happens in my neighborhood. Because people have the disassociation that
Oh,
domestic
yeah.
violence doesn't happen here. I tell people it happens in mansions, it happens
Oh,
in
yeah.
slums, it
It
happens
happens
up
everywhere.
and down every race,
Right.
everything. It doesn't even matter. Like
Right,
everywhere.
it's
So
not it's not a socioeconomic problem.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, no, absolutely. So, do you, I'm guessing with this journey that you've been on, you've learned a few lessons, a few lessons along the way. So, what life lessons have you learned since starting Praline's Backyard?
Oh, I think, like I mentioned, pivoting because I remember I wanted a building, so I
Right,
pivoted. Like I
right.
went on. I didn't even reckon. You know how you have this vision, like I want to build a building. That's not that difficult, right? I don't know. It didn't seem like a little land, get some
Yeah,
land, build
yeah,
something.
sure, sure. It's the American way. It's what we
You
do,
know?
right?
Yeah, but then it's like, oh, you have like what are those things called? Permission to build on property that you already own. I need
Yeah,
permission from the county to build.
yeah,
Okay, that doesn't
yeah.
make sense, but we'll go with it. Okay. Um,
Zoning, things like
Totally,
that.
exactly. All that stuff. I was like, okay, then all these people you have to pay before you even build. Like, are you
Uh-huh.
serious? Like,
Yep.
then you go broke
Planning.
before you even
Yeah, yeah.
build.
Yep, 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 yep. Pretty
So I
much.
learned all of that. It was a really expensive lesson to learn, but definitely one that I've learned. And I think, as you mentioned, as I said before, it worked out because I believe in community and I believe in partnership. And
Right.
so, and I've worked around the world. I've worked in public health for over 20 years, and I've had the privilege to travel. And one thing that always frustrated me, I could be like in Ethiopia, and we have people coming from the US to build a building in Ethiopia. Why? There are people in this country that can do it. Why are
Right.
we flying people in from just
Right.
because
Right.
I'm American?
Right.
People, they build buildings in Ethiopia all the time. Why do we come to the US to build it? So
Well,
the thing,
we get a little ethnocentric when we think our way is the only way.
yeah, but it's like, this
So
makes no sense.
Americans, we have a little bit of entitlement that way, I think, that we just think that we have it all figured out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I knew I never liked that idea. I was like, yeah, the people in this country, they have buildings already. So they've been building them for a while, so they can do it. So that same idea I is applied to this. Now. So that's why I was when the building didn't come through, I was like, well, there are people that are already established. They have working pet boarding facilities already. they're doing the work already. And
Right.
this pet is just like any other pet that's paying to be there. It's a dog, it's a cat.
Right.
Same idea. Provide the same service at a reduced cost or free for the survivor's pets. So
Well, and ultimately, as nonprofit founders, we're connectors. That's really what our job is. Our job is to connect people, which is what you're doing through partnerships, and to build community. That's really
yeah,
what we do. We,
yeah,
as nonprofit founders, we get a bunch of people, we take our idea to help people and pets, and we get them all together and we say, let's bring everyone together to help solve this problem. And
yeah,
we're the glue that brings that together. And that's exactly what you've done. You have this idea, you have a solution, and you're trying to bring everyone together to do it with a creative way, but that no one's ever done before, or people aren't doing maybe as much as they should be doing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
do you think you've changed at all in this journey? Do you think anything's changed?
Oh, definitely. I think so. Yeah, definitely have. I don't know. I think I've continued learning about myself. Like I never thought I would be this leader or this. I would never thought I would be on a podcast or any kind of visual mechanism. Like I couldn't even believe that I would. Like I wasn't a social media person before the foundation of the business. It's like, oh, because my life is pretty private. Like I'm not really. But to see
Right.
my face, like to randomly see my face on the internet, and I'm like, oh wow, people see me. Like, and it's just like weird. Like even when like even I say my goal is to raise awareness to 10 million people. So 10 million people will eventually see my face.
It
But even when I see like the number of followers, and I hate the word followers because I'm not
right.
Jesus God or anything, but I think that 50,000 people currently know what my face looks like. And that's just like, but I have no idea who they are. And so when I'm out in Atlanta, I go to pet events and things like that. So people know who I'm like, oh, I've seen you. And it's like,
Right.
oh, okay. Good to know you see me, but I don't know who you are. So that's
Right.
like
But
daunting in a way, but
it's part of the job, right? We have to be
yeah.
the messenger. We're the
Yeah.
messenger. And so with that comes a face and
Yeah.
they have to see it. But I think being a messenger is really what we are. I mean, we're connectors and we're messengers. That's what we do. We are telling everyone, "Hey, hey, over here. Look at this.
Yeah.
Come help me. I need help over here."
Yeah.
And hopefully they do, and that's what I'm hoping that, the conversation that we had today is gonna do, is gonna bring more people to see your face, to
Yes.
see who you are, because you are gonna send me your pictures,
Yes.
and to learn your story and to find out how to support you. So tell us how we can support you, follow you, where we can get the social media, how we can be one of those thousands of people that follow you. Give us
Definitely.
give it
So
to us.
first, go to our website, Praline's Backyard Foundation.org, like Praline's Pecan Ice Cream, and then backyard, like your backyard, foundation.org. And we are Praline's Backyard on all social media, YouTube, Threads, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So definitely follow, like, and share it. You can do that while you're listening to this right now. Just go to the your app and like, follow, and share. And if you have the means, definitely donate to house pets of a domestic violence survivor. And if you like wearing merch, we have a No Dog Left Behind t-shirt and a No Cat Left
Aw.
Behind t-shirt. And it helps start the conversation because I have the shirt on right now. And so I love people when they ask, what does No Dog Left Behind mean? And I get to tell
Mhm.
them, because I lead a foundation that houses pets of domestic violence survivor, and I want no dog or no pet left behind with an abuser when a survivor leaves that home. And so just help start the conversation. So if you like messaging t-shirts, which I love, because I like to communicate a message and who I am. So do that and donate. And we have a race coming up in May 2024 here in Atlanta. So if you're in Atlanta, we have it's a dog race because it's all about a dog as agility throughout the race, and different enrichment activities for your dog. So come out if you live in Atlanta or anywhere in the area in the Southeast, you want to come, feel free to come and have a great time with you and your dog.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Orzi. I love what you're doing. I love the way that you are helping to get the message out, how you are helping survivors to heal, you are helping pets, you're helping a whole lot of people. And it's really beautiful. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We're really grateful and we can't wait to support. And hopefully everyone listening is going to sign up for social media and hopefully they're going to be donating or getting involved or and just spreading the word and letting people know about the service. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Heidi, for giving me the platform to help reach 10 million people. So thank you.
It's absolutely a privilege. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Orzi Cook. about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think your comment about being able to pivot in spite of a challenge was so inspiring and true. To learn more about these modern day heroes, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, and for being a part of our positive movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters.